the internet has been a beehive of activity ever since COVID-19 started. And you would think that a pandemic is just enough, but recently Kenya was actually ranked as among the worst bullies on Twitter. And this was actually a UN report, I believe. Very embarrassing, if you ask me. So is it possible to contain online bullying, and how can we actually do this? My guest here in studio is Elmad Reagan, and he's a psychologist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joyce.
A UN body, like of all the things the UN could be reporting about, one of the things that they had to report about was Kenya being the #1 as far as Twitter and just bullying. Isn't that embarrassing?
It is actually embarrassing. And you see, for them to flag that as a point of concern means that a lot of misdeeds have been done. Because cyberbullying can escalate to things like suicide, which is responsible for about 800,000 deaths globally every year. That's a report by the same UN body.
Yeah, very significant. And even here in Kenya, like, we've actually seen this whole COVID-19 situation escalate into stigma and now even bullying. And it started with Brian and Brenda. Who were the first 2 patients, I guess. And recently we've had many other, I think most of them being young people, being bullied online. I wanted to talk about the psychology of these keyboard warriors. Because in my mind, something has to be seriously off, like, for you to spend that much energy just trying to pull down someone you've never met, will never meet. They have no, influence or, interest even in your own life. What is happening in the mind of someone who's a keyboard bully?
Yeah, so quite a lot goes on in the mind of a bully. But even before we get into that, maybe just to dissect for the viewers watching what this cyberbullying is all about, what it entails. So ideally, it's just sharing disparaging remarks or derogatory statements that would attack somebody, either through social media, through messages, and whichever forms of electronic media that are available. And so back to the question, what goes in the mind of a cyberbully? So we need to understand, one, first and foremost, that a cyberbully will not just wake up and decide to take their phone and start tweeting or start sending negative statements about somebody. The problem starts with the upbringing of this bully, so to speak. And see, studies have shown that there's a link between a bully or cyberbully for that reason and the parenting style that they got. If, say, for example, this child was exposed to a lot of violence when growing up, they will take up the same and equally transfer it to their peers of their fellows. And because some of them cannot physically do it, they resort to the media to vent out their frustrations and their angers. Yes.
Yeah. So whereas they think that they're being witty or, crusading for some other cause, they actually have internal issues that they've not sorted out.
Exactly. Yes.
There's an assumption that most cyberbullies, or the ones who get bullied, are young people. Is that true? Is that always true?
It's not always true, although statistics show that a majority of the victims or the bullies themselves are young people. And this is because young people grapple with a lot of things. There's this famous psychologist called Erik Erikson who did some very interesting study and came up with what we call the psychosocial stages. And there's a stage where he mentions issues to do with identity versus role confusion. And see, a young person would therefore want to identify who they really are in the society or where to fit in. And if at all they don't find who exactly they are, they'll resort to other means to justify or to fill the void that is in them. And unfortunately, a lot of young people will either resort to drugs, violence, crime, and some yet delve into issues like cyberbullying, all in effort to find themselves and their identity and their place in the society. Yes.
So when you say that, they're trying to find their place, a lot of it is also linked to how they were raised when they were growing up and whatnot. Does it mean that, is cyberbullying a conscious thing, or are they unconscious of the fact that they're just being absolutely mean and terrible on social media?
So as it begins off, it is something very conscious, very deliberate. Because by and large, I wouldn't imagine somebody in their normal 5 senses to just pick up their phone and start tweeting or sending messages that, are hurtful or shameful. But over time, as they do it again and again, then it becomes almost automated, because the brain is very interesting as it's wired. The moment you expose it to something for a long time, it becomes normal. It's as simple as, say, brushing your teeth. You don't, think about it. You wake up in the morning, go to the shower, take a toothbrush, toothpaste, and you're done. So the same is with cyberbullying and any other effect that, you know, is linked to exposure. So at the beginning, it is very deliberate. Somebody's conscious that what I'm doing is wrong. But the moment it's repeated, it becomes ingrained in the person to the extent that they don't even feel like it's something wrong. Yes.
But then, so what's with the mask, right? Because oftentimes they don't have any profile pictures. They have like 2 followers. They, you know, you there's no information about the person whatsoever. So what is with that mask? Because the language and the way they present themselves, the tone of their texting and their, you know, bullying on the social media is very different from what you'd expect to see. Like,
Exactly.
they sound very confident, but clearly you're not. Like, we don't even know anything about you. You're not bold enough to come out and say who you are. How do you explain that?
So the reason for the mask or the facade that they put up is so as to justify for what I mentioned earlier, the insecurities that they have. Because somehow deep down they know that what I'm doing is wrong, and they don't want to get exposed or to get noticed because they know the repercussions thereof or whatever they are doing. And so that's why they resort to hiding or being fishy with their identity so as to protect themselves and, you know, sort of massage that security that they have. Yes.
Are you seeing any sort of rise now in cyberbullying, considering the times that we're in, where anxiety levels are, you know, just so high? But also I feel like watu wamechanuka up here, like they're, you know, we're a lot more aware of cyberbullies and almost how to handle them, quote unquote. Are you still seeing any sort of surge?
Yes, there is actually still a great surge that is, you know, being reported. As I mentioned earlier, the UN, you know, states that about 800,000 deaths are reported annually as a result of, you know, suicide. And cyberbullying, you know, accounts to some of these figures. And so you see, unless and until this issue is addressed, then it becomes a major point of concern. Because you see, we'll assume that fine, we have laws and we have, you know, jurisdictions to tame this. But for as long as nobody's coming to the front line and speaking to them as it should, or rather handling the issue as should, then the numbers will keep on rising.
Well, tell me about that, because you're talking about laws and policies. What do we have here in Kenya that speaks to cyberbullying?
Yeah, so in the Constitution, Chapter 4, the Bill of Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, Section 33 speaks about, you know, the freedom of expression and freedom of speech.
Right, which
but
a
again,
lot of people use
exactly,
to justify themselves.
But then it has limitations, and people don't understand that. In 2018, there's the Cyberbullying Act that was passed. And, you know, it says that if you're found culpable of the same, you'll be sentenced to 10 years in prison or fined 20 million.
Wow.
Or both.
Wow.
And so you see, until you start understanding or speaking about these things, then it becomes almost normal.
Right,
and
because
you
you have to ask, who has anyone been found culpable? What does it mean
Exactly.
to be found culpable? Has anybody even had to pay that fine?
Yeah, because if assuming one person is found and they are, you know, they are convicted, then people say, oh, okay, oops, there's something here, something is happening. We need to be more careful.
Okay.
So it is a multifaceted approach that needs to be put in place. The judiciary has to play its part. The people, you know, the whistleblowers have to equally play their part, and even the victims themselves have to open up and say that I was bullied in this and that manner, and I need help for the same.
Okay. So it sounds like you're saying we've been a little bit lax as far as sort of trying to implement that constitutional.
Unfortunately so.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want us to talk about both sides of this, right? Because you've talked about the victims of cyberbullying also being able to come out and speak about it. How does one do so? Especially because sometimes the things that, you know, these people are bullying, I don't know where they've gone and dug up your information from. Maybe they've posted stuff about you online that doesn't paint you in a very good light. How does someone who's been a victim of cyberbullying actually come out, and where do they come out to? Like, where do they go?
All right. So a lot of times it becomes a bit difficult for a cyberbullying victim to open up, of course, because of the embarrassing effect that the cyberbully did on them, or rather, you know, exposed them to. And so ideally, for you to open up effectively as a victim, the first thing you need to do is to, you know, avoid anything that would make you respond to threats or messages from the bully. Because the moment you do that, you're only but kindling the fire even more, empowering them more, driving them on to do whatever they are doing. So as a first resort, don't even be tempted to respond. Then secondly, block the person. Thanks to social media, you can do that. You can block the person. As a
save your peace of mind.
Exactly.
Like, if they're not paying rent in your head, they're not a good tenant.
I agree.
Right.
Because the more you keep on entertaining them, the more it hurts you and the more it, you know, it pains you.
Yeah.
So After that, the next thing you want to do is to have the evidence. Say if it's a screenshot of whatever message you were sent, for for future reference, that will even help in the jurisdiction should you want to go the legal way, so that you are assisted even easier, because the laws are there. It's only a matter of now reinforcing that, enforcing them down.
So you could actually take a screenshot, take it to a lawyer and say you want to file a legal suit against
Exactly,
this person.
because thanks to technology, again, it can be verified whether it is genuine a concern or not.
Right.
But because you've gone to this extent of even getting a lawyer, how would that be fake? Because it means it has hurt you and your rights have been infringed upon.
Right.
Yeah. And so after doing all this, accept that this and this happened.
Right.
The message is out there.
Yeah.
The heart is there. So accept that, fine, it has happened. What next can I do?
Right.
And the next step, therefore, is to open up to either a trusted friend or a colleague. And if worst comes to worst, then see a therapist.
Okay.
Yes.
But obviously, I mean, if humans would just practice humanity,
Exactly.
we wouldn't need to get to that point, because then, someone is thinking legal fees for a therapist, like just the cost, and even just having to deal with the baggage, like it carries on and trickles down, with far-ranging effects.
Yes.
And so for this person then who is a bully, and if you're watching this show right now, I really hope you're paying attention to this. How do they recover? Because this is an illness in many ways. It's an illness from, their own past hurts and disappointments, as you've said, even growing up. How do they come out of this, right? Is it someone's intervention? What role do family and friends have to play? Because you've also said that this is very secretive. So you could be sitting at home, dinner every night with your kids, your son or your daughter, not knowing that when they go to their room, they're also attacking people on social media. How does one get out of that space? What does it take for one to recover from being a cyberbully?
So just the same way like the victim would, recover from the attacks, as a first step being acceptance, the cyberbully equally needs to accept that whatever they're doing is wrong. Because as I mentioned, fine, they know that what they're doing is wrong, but then until they accept that what I'm doing is wrong and is hurting other people, then can they start the recovery process. In the world of psychology, say that if you want to overcome any challenge, any setback, the first resort is always to accept that the problem is there. But downsizing it or downplaying it only makes things worse. So as a bully, the moment you accept that I have this challenge and I need help for it, it becomes easier. Because the moment you accept and open up to people, you put the problem to perspective. Okay? And so that means you'll be exposed to other persons, maybe who are also cyberbullies, who will share the same experiences that they had as cyberbullies and how they cope through. So I would really insist on the first step of accepting that there is a problem, and equally, again, open up to somebody that you trust, and that equally means well for you, so that they'll help you overcome the hurdle that you have. Because I would say there's a point that it comes that it also becomes like some sort of addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is really sad. And addiction is an illness, a mental illness for that reason.
And that's why I'm trying to ask, because even when we look at addiction, you see, the thing with an addiction, like say drugs or alcohol, it's the repercussions are very visible.
Yes.
Right? So someone around you will see, hey, okay, this guy, this chick, they're not going down the right path. They're drunkard, they're drug addict, we need to do something. And so it's easier for someone to say that they're doing an intervention. But for something that is this secretive, and yet they are sort of gaining courage by continually doing this, I'm trying to pinpoint what is the situation or what is the circumstance that will cause this person to wake up and see, oh my goodness, I need help and what I'm doing is wrong. What does it take for someone to get there?
All right. So there's this concept, again, in psychology that we call exposure. You see, until and unless you get the full extent of what you've done as a person, it seems pretty normal to you. If, say, for example, as a child, you were, say, playing with some plate in your hand and you've been warned, if you play with the plate, you're going to drop it and it's going to break. I think it's just normal. But until it breaks, will you know that, oops, fine, this thing is really serious and it hurts. So you see the same effect. If this cyberbully is exposed to the extents or the of the damages that they cause other persons, then they will reconsider whatever they are doing. Some have apologized because of their actions after knowing that whatever they did, whatever they said, hurt other people's or pushed some people to depression, and some unfortunately to suicide. So exposing the bully to understand the extent of the damage they are doing will equally help them come out and stop whatever they are doing. Because as it is, in effect, some, as I mentioned earlier, are not fully aware of the repercussions that they are doing. But the moment it is exposed to them and they understand what it causes, therefore, then will they start taking a step back and reflecting and step towards change.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's clearly a very thin line here between cyberbullying and having your own opinion, right? And speaking your mind out and saying that, is part of my constitutional right. How can we sort of guard ourselves? Because like you said, someone doesn't just wake up and become a cyberbully. I think you use these little experiences, talking back at people, just being really catty at them. Then it is about airing your opinion and saying, that's just the way I am. That's just the way God made me.
Yes.
So you slowly begin to build your capacity, I guess, to become a cyberbully. So the question then is, have we taken this whole empowerment story too far, or freedom of speech too far? And for the rest of us who hopefully are not cyberbullies, how do we figure out how to still express ourselves without really toying with that line?
Yeah, so I'd answer that by saying that it calls for all of us to start being emotionally intelligent. And emotional intelligence here entails, understanding your emotions and matching them up with the emotions of the other person. Because the moment I understand that if I say something mean to you, that will hurt you. So it means reconsidering how you treat other people emotionally. Because human beings are emotional beings. They act on feelings and emotions. The moment the emotions are hurt, it becomes a problem. And so to that effect, as a starting point, I normally use this acronym TRUE. Before you say something, can it be trusted? That is the T. Yeah.
Okay.
Then R, is it realistic?
Right.
Okay. Then U, is it something that can be understood clearly? Because some of us think that you're communicating, but you're only but ranting out statements. Yeah. And then the last one, the E, is it something that is empowering?
Wow.
Because by and large, if you just continue speaking for the sake of speaking, or just, quote unquote, I'm that way, I just speak as I should.
Yeah.
Also consider the other person's feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
Is it something that is trusted?
Trusted,
Is it realistic?
Realistic.
Is it something that can be understood? And is it something that can empower somebody?
Oh, and especially that last one. There are people who spell true as just TRU. No, but the E is important.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, point blank, if you're not saying anything that is edifying or that is building other people, just
hold your peace.
Like, imagine the world will go on if you're quiet. It's okay. You don't have to say your opinion if it's not building someone up. And I think that's the mentality that we need to have.
Very
that
true.
There is, I think, the essence of humanity. And hopefully, if anything, Corona and this whole period is teaching you that, right? So a very fascinating conversation we've had here with Elmad Reagan, who's a psychologist. I really want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so
and
much.
If people want to reach out to you or follow your work in some way, how can they do so?
Yeah, so you can reach me out through my social media platforms, all of them as Elmad Reagan. Elmad is ELMARD. Reagan is like Ronald Reagan, the president.
Okay.
So across all social media platforms. And from there, you'll get my information, the website, and the phone numbers and everything, so that we connect and see how to help each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the same for both people who maybe have experienced cyberbullying and you need some sort of counseling or therapy. They could reach out to you as well. But also, if you're at that point and you're getting to an awakening of, Maze, this is not life and that is not what God created you to do, okay? To be a cyberbully. It is not. So hopefully you're also reaching out for help as well. Thank you once again for your time. I do appreciate you, Elmad, and we would be happy to have you back on the show some other time. And with that said, guys, we do need to take a break, but I think I need to apologize to guys again, because a lot of you are complaining about the signal, saying that you're not getting it wherever you are. We're going to inform our technicians and hopefully they can get that sorted. But thank you to the rest of you who are trying to engage with us on social media. We do appreciate you. 22999. Mazee watu wamekasirika hapa sana. They're saying they're missing the show. I truly do apologize. We'll see what to do about that. But also, considering how our wake-up calls have been having such issues this week, I also want to invite you to do something, all right? I'd love to now actually get to see you guys' faces in the mornings. I'm going to be inviting you to actually send in a video clip of yourself Tuma in your salams. Tell me what you love most about Full Circle with Joyce, anything that you want to share, with the rest of the audience, but also your salams. And now you can do it on video. All you need to do is record a not more than 1 minute clip. Hata kama ni salamu jameni, usisalamie kila mtu, hata anti wa shamahoho. No, just keep it, within 1 minute or less. And the WhatsApp line for you to send that clip to is 0712 268 315. That's 0712 268 315. And as we get those videos, I'm going to be playing them in the mornings as I get to see you guys face to face. All right. So with that said, we're going to take a break as we get ready for our second hour of the show. And coming up next, we're going to be having our viewpoint discussion. All right. We're going to have all sorts of different topics that we'll be looking at, everything from the extension of the dusk to dawn curfew, coronavirus updates, even land being repossessed by government, from government officials. Very interesting topics coming your way here on the show. And later on, of course, we'll also be bringing you an artist. With that said, we're going to take a break. I'll see you at the top of the hour.